The briefing room smelled like stale coffee and old canvas. Sergeant Alara Moss stood at the back, silent, invisible the way she always stood. Around her, voices rose and fell, loud, confident, certain. Men who believed their volume gave them authority. Men who'd learned warfare from manuals and expected the enemy to follow the same rules. Captain Harlow was at the front, his finger stabbing at a map spread across a folding table scarred with cigarette burns and the ghosts of 100 failed operations. "We move at dawn," he said. His voice carried the kind of certainty that came from never having been proven catastrophically wrong. Alpha Team takes the ridge. Bravo secures the approach. Charlie holds the rear flank. We go in heavy. We go invisible. We make them think twice about holding that valley. Lieutenant Corin, broad-shouldered and sharp-eyed, leaned forward. "What about Overwatch?" Harlow glanced toward the back of the room, toward Alara. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something between dismissal and reluctance. "Moss will provide observation," he said. The words came out flat, obligatory. "Long-range support." "Sergeant Moss." Alara looked up from her rifle. She'd been breaking it down, cleaning components that were already clean. Ritual masquerading as preparation. "What do you need, Park?" Eunice stepped inside, letting the door close behind her. "I heard what Corin said. In the briefing. He wasn't wrong. Yes, he was." There was heat in Eunice's voice. Anger on someone else's behalf. The kind that came from witnessing injustice and believing it could be fixed with the right words. "You have the highest kill count in the battalion. Everyone knows that. Kill counts don't carry weight in a room like that." "Then what does?" Alara fitted the bolt carrier group back into the rifle. Her hands moved with absolute precision, muscle memory built over 10,000 repetitions. The appearance of strength, the performance of confidence, the ability to make other people feel safe by being loud and large and certain. "That's bullshit." "Maybe." Alara set the rifle aside and looked at Una fully. "But it's also reality. You can rage against it, or you can adapt to it. Issues adaptation. By being invisible, by being effective." Una was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can I ask you something?" "You're going to anyway. Why do you do this? Why stay in a unit that doesn't respect you? Why not transfer? Go somewhere you be valued?" Alara thought about the question. She thought about all the units she'd served in, all the rooms she'd stood in the back of, all the voices that talked over her, around her, through her, like she was transparent. She thought about the faces in her scope, the people who'd died because she'd been patient enough to wait for the perfect shot, the people who'd lived because she'd taken that shot before they even knew they were in danger. "Because someone has to do the work that no one wants to acknowledge," she said finally. "Someone has to be the ghost." Alara prepared her kit in silence. 3.5 liters of water in bladders that distribute the weight evenly. Protein bars that tasted like cardboard compressed with disappointment. Ammunition, 60 rounds, each one hand-loaded, each powder charge weighed to the 10th of a grain. Camouflage netting. Ballistic calculator. Range finder. Wind meter. Medical kit. Backup radio. Solar charger. Everything had a place. Everything had a weight. Everything had been tested. Private Diaz, bunked 2 cots over, watched her with the kind of fascination people usually reserve for watching someone defuse a bomb. "You really going to carry all that?" he asked. "Yes. It's got to be, 60 pounds? 63. That's more than half your body weight." Alara didn't answer. She was applying camouflage paint to her face, not the dramatic stripes of movie soldiers, but broken patterns that confused the eye, made the brain struggle to find the edges of a human face. "How far you got to hike?" Diaz asked. 12 kilometers. Jesus. Through that terrain? Through that terrain. Diaz shook his head. "And Corin thinks you can't handle it." Corin thinks in terms of what he could handle. He's not wrong for that. He just doesn't have enough imagination to understand that different people solve the same problems differently. That's surprisingly zen. It's survival.
At 0530, Alara was ready. Major Chun found her at the north gate, standing in the darkness like she'd grown there, like she was part of the desert itself. "Walk with me, Sergeant." They moved beyond the wire into the open desert. The The sky was beginning to lighten, not with sunrise, but with that pre-dawn glow that made everything look ghostly, unreal. Chen was silent for a long time. Then, Harlow is afraid. I know. He's afraid because we've lost 2 patrols in that valley. 23 men. No bodies recovered. No evidence of where they went or how they died. Just gone. Alara said nothing. Intelligence thinks there's a sniper team operating in the area. Ghost soldiers. They set up, they wait, they take their shots, they disappear. By the time our people realize they're under fire, half of them are already dead. You want me to find them. I want you to make sure what happened to those patrols doesn't happen to this one. Chun turned to face her. Harlow doesn't understand what you do. He thinks firepower is the answer to every problem. But you and I both know that some problems require precision, patience, the ability to see what others miss. What if I can't stop it? Then a lot of good people are going to die. Chen's voice was quiet, heavy. But if anyone can stop it, it's you. Because you understand something Harlow doesn't. What's that? That the most dangerous person on a battlefield isn't always the loudest one. Chun handed her a sealed envelope. Your actual orders. The ones I couldn't put in the official briefing. Read them when you're in position. And Moss. Sir. Come back. I don't have many soldiers like you. I can't afford to lose the ones I have. Alara took the envelope. Said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. The desert didn't care about your courage. It didn't care about your training or your determination or your reasons for being there. It just took heat, water, strength, hope. Alara moved through the pre-dawn darkness like smoke through air. Present but intangible. There but not there. 63 pounds of gear that should have broken someone her size. Should have been slow, clumsy, and loud. Didn't. She'd learned a long time ago that strength wasn't about how much you could lift in a gym. It was about how far you could carry what needed to be carried. How long could you endure what needed to be endured. The terrain was hostile in the way that only true wilderness could be, not actively trying to kill you, but profoundly indifferent to whether you lived or died. Rocky outcroppings that could hide snipers or scorpions or nothing at all. Wadis that looked solid until you stepped on them and sank into sand that pulled you down like quicksand in slow motion. Ridgelines that offered perfect vantage points and perfect exposure to anyone watching from higher ground. Alara avoided the obvious paths, moved through terrain that shouldn't be passable, found routes that existed only if you were willing to accept discomfort as the price of invisibility. By 0800 hours, she was 3 kilometers from the base. By 1100 hours, she was 6 kilometers out. By 1400 hours, she reached her primary observation post. The position was perfect in the way that only truly miserable places could be. A shallow depression in a ridgeline, surrounded by rocks that radiated heat like ovens, screened by scrub brush that looked dead but was merely dormant. From here, she could see the valley. All of it, 8 kilometers long, 3 kilometers wide. A natural corridor between mountain ranges that had funneled armies and trade caravans, and refugees for thousands of years. The killing ground. Alara set up with the methodical precision of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. Thermal tarp first to mask her heat signature from aerial observation and thermal scopes. Camouflage netting next, woven with local vegetation that matched the surrounding terrain exactly. Her rifle found its rest. A small sandbag that let her make micro-adjustments without movement, without sound. She settled in, became part of the landscape, became nothing. Only then did she open Major Chen's envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No letteread. No clasification markings. Just words typed on a field computer. Sergeant Moss. Official orders are to provide observation and long-range support. Actual orders are different. Intelligence believes the enemy sniper team is operating from elevated positions in the eastern ridgeline. An estimated 2 to 3 personnel. Highly skilled, possibly foreign contractors. They have the advantage of time, terrain, and local knowledge. You have training and motivation. Your mission is not observation. Your mission is elimination. You are authorized to engage at your discretion. You are not required to report position or actions until the mission is complete. You are operating under special reconnaissance protocols, meaning you do not officially exist during this operation. If compromised, you will receive no support. If killed, you will receive no acknowledgement. This is not fair. This is just reality. Do what you do best. Stay invisible. Stay alive. Chin. Alara read the letter twice. Then she held it over a small flame tab until it caught fire, until it curled into ash that the wind scattered across rocks that had seen empires rise and fall and forgotten them all. She checked her rifle, checked her scope, checked her ballistic calculator, wind meter, and rangefinder, and all the other tools that turned killing into mathematics, distance into salvation. Then she settled in to wait, because patience wasn't just a virtue in this work. It was the work. Hours passed like water through stone, slowly, but with absolute certainty. Alara didn't move, didn't shift position, didn't allow discomfort or heat or the desert's hostility to interrupt her observation. Through her scope, she studied the valley. Every rock, every shadow, every place where the light fell differently, where the heat shimmer distorted vision, where someone with skill and patience could hide and wait and kill. At 1,647 hours, she saw them. Movement at 2,800 meters, eastern ridgeline, exactly where Chen's intelligence had predicted. Two figures, moving with the kind of care that came from experience, from understanding that one mistake in this environment meant death. They were setting up a hide, professional, efficient, almost invisible, almost. Alara watched them through her scope with the detached focus of a surgeon examining an X-ray. She noted their equipment, rifles with high-end optics, camouflage that matched the terrain perfectly, thermal reduction gear that made them hard to spot through electronic means. She noted their movements, confident but not arrogant, fast but not rushed, the kind of efficiency that came from having done this many times before. She noted their position, elevated, with clear sight lines down the valley, positioned perfectly to observe the route Harlow's patrol would take. The route 23 men had taken before and never returned from. Alara's pulse didn't change. Her breathing remained steady. She watched the enemy snipers complete their hide, watched them settle into position, watched them begin their own observation of the valley, hunting for targets that would arrive with the morning. She calculated ranges. Wind speed, 8 kilometers per hour, quartering from left. Temperature, 42 degrees Celsius. Barometric pressure, 1,012 millibars. Distance, 2,847 meters. Elevation difference, 213 meters. Coriolis effect at this latitude and range, 11 centimeters right. She could take the shot now. Kill one, maybe both, before they could react. But that would reveal her position, would tell them that their hunt had become reciprocal, would turn this into a duel that could last days, that could end with her dead in this depression, while Harlow's patrol walked into an ambush she'd failed to prevent. So she waited, watched, learned. At 1834 hours, a third figure appeared, moving up to the hide from a concealed position further down the ridge. This one was different, older, moving with the kind of economy that came not from youth and athleticism but from wisdom and experience. A mentor, a teacher, commander. The three met briefly. Alara couldn't hear their conversation, couldn't read lips at this distance, but she could read body language. The older figure was giving instructions, pointing toward the valley, explaining fields of fire, escape routes, and timing. Training. These weren't just killers. They were a school. A factory for producing more death, more ghosts, more invisible soldiers who'd go on to kill others. Alara made her decision. Darkness fell like a curtain. The desert transformed from hostile to alien. A landscape that seemed to exist on a different planet, under different stars, following different rules. Alara didn't move from her position. She ate a protein bar in the darkness, chewing slowly, drinking water in measured sips. She watched the eastern ridge through night vision, watched the faint heat signatures of the three figures settling in for the night. They were confident, safe, invisible to everyone but her. At 0200 hours, she allowed herself 4 hours of rest. Not sleep. She'd learned long ago that real sleep in a position like this was death. But a state of alert stillness, where part of her mind remained aware, monitoring, processing information even while her body recovered. She dreamed of nothing. When she woke at 0600, the sky was beginning to lighten. The enemy position was already active. She could see movement through her scope, preparations, equipment checks, the ritual of soldiers who knew death was coming and wanted to be ready to deliver it efficiently. At 0715, Harlow's patrol departed the forward operating base. Alara watched them through her scope. 32 soldiers. 4 vehicles. Moving with the confidence of people who believed their strength made them safe. They entered the valley at 0803. The enemy snipers watched them come. Alara watched the enemy snipers. A chain of observation. A hierarchy of killing. At 0847, the enemy made their move. The older figure, the mentor, raised his rifle. Alara saw him settle into his shooting position. Saw him begin his breathing ritual. Saw his finger move toward the trigger. She made her calculations. Wind had shifted. Now 6 kilometers per hour from the right. Temperature rising, 38 degrees. Distance, 2,847 meters. Time for the bullet to travel, 3.8 seconds. Time for the enemy to fire their shot, 2 seconds. She had 1.8 seconds to stop him from killing someone in Harlow's patrol. Alara didn't think about it. Thinking took time. She simply acted. Found the space between heartbeats. The moment of absolute stillness. The shot broke like glass, sudden, inevitable, clean. The rifle's recoil was absorbed by her body, by the sandbag, by the earth itself. For 3.8 seconds, the bullet traveled. In that time, the enemy sniper might have wondered about the quality of light that morning. Might have thought about breakfast or home, or the person he was about to kill. Might have noticed something. Probably didn't. The bullet took him in the upper chest. Through her scope, Alara saw him collapse. Saw the other 2 snipers react with the kind of confusion that comes from sudden, inexplicable violence. They looked around wildly, trying to understand where the shot came from, scanning ridgelines, looking at the wrong places, because 2,847 meters was beyond what they believed possible. Beyond what most people believed possible. Alara worked her bolt. Smooth, mechanical, chambered the next round. The second sniper was raising his own rifle now, trying to find a target, trying to understand. Alara's second shot took him through the scope of his own rifle. The third figure, younger, less experienced, broke and ran. Smart, tactical, running for cover, for concealment, for any chance of survival. Alara led him by 2 meters, accounted for his speed, for his path, for the desperation that made people move in predictable patterns. Her third shot caught him mid-stride. He fell, didn't move again. The valley was silent. Harlow's patrol never knew what happened. They continued their movement through the valley, alert but untested, scanning for threats that were already dead. Alara watched them pass beneath her position. Small figures moving through terrain that should have been their graveyard. Living because someone they didn't respect had made shots they didn't know were possible. She felt nothing about it. No pride. No satisfaction. Just the hollow acknowledgement that the mathematics had worked, that the wind had been kind, that 3 people were dead and 32 were alive and the equation balanced even if it would never be understood. She remained in position for 6 more hours. Watching, waiting to see if there were more, if the school had other students, other teachers. But the eastern ridge remained still, empty, silent. At 1,500 hours, she packed her hide with the same methodical care she'd used to create it. The thermal tarp is folded precisely. Camouflage netting bundled. Brass collected, 3 empty casings that told a story only she could read. She buried them in sand that would cover them within hours, within days, until no evidence remained that she'd ever been there. Then she began the long walk back. Alara reached the forward operating base at 2,340 hours. Exhausted, dehydrated despite her water discipline, carrying the weight of 63 pounds and 3 lives and the knowledge that tomorrow would be the same and the day after that and every day until the war ended or she did. The sentries recognized her. waved her through, didn't ask questions. She went straight to Major Chen's office. Found him awake, working by lamplight, surrounded by reports and maps and the paperwork of command. Sergeant Moss. He looked up. Patrol returned safely. No contact. No casualties. Yes, sir. They never even knew they were in danger. No, sir. Chun set down his pen. Your report. 3 enemy combatants eliminated. Grid reference November. Echo 7-2-4-1. Elevated position, Eastern Ridge. Sniper team neutralized before they could engage friendly forces. Distance, 2,847 meters. Chun was quiet for a moment. Then, that's not possible. It happened, sir. How? Alara thought about the question. About windage, elevation, and barometric pressure. About patience and stillness and the space between heartbeats. About being invisible for so long that you forgot what it felt like to be seen. Training, she said finally. Equipment. Conditions were favorable. It wasn't the truth. The truth was something deeper, something harder to explain. The truth was that she'd stopped being entirely human somewhere along the way. Had become something else. Something that could wait motionless for hours, that could kill at distances that seemed mythological, that could carry the weight of being invisible without breaking. But you couldn't say that in a report. Chun nodded slowly. Get some rest, Sergeant. Debrief in the morning. Sir. She turned to leave. Moss. Sir. Thank you. For what you did today. For the lives you saved. Alara said nothing. What could she say? Your welcome felt obscene. Just doing my job felt insufficient. Someone had to feel too revealing. So she just nodded. And left. She found her bunk empty. Her gear was exactly as she'd left it. The other soldiers were asleep, exhausted from their patrol through a valley that should have killed them but didn't. They'd never know why. Would never understand that the silence they'd experienced had been purchased with precision, with patience, with 3 shots fired from a distance they couldn't imagine by a woman they barely acknowledged existed. Alara cleaned her rifle in the darkness. Each component was handled with reverence. Each action a prayer to gods she didn't believe in, asking for forgiveness for deaths she didn't regret. When she finished, she lay on her bunk, stared at the ceiling, didn't sleep. At 0600, Specialist Park found her there. Sergeant? You okay? Fine. You don't look fine. You look. Park searched for the right word. Haunted. Maybe I am. Do you want to talk about it? No. Park sat on the edge of her own bunk. The patrol came back safe. All of them. No casualties, no contact. Harlow's calling it a perfect operation. Good. He's already planning the next one. Says if the enemy's giving us the valley without a fight, we should exploit it. Push deeper. Take more ground. Alara closed her eyes. He doesn't know, does he? Park asked quietly. None of them know what you did. No. Doesn't that bother you? Alara thought about the question. About recognition and acknowledgement, and the human need to be seen, to be valued, to have your contributions understood and celebrated. About the cost of invisibility. About the weight of being the ghost. It used to, she said finally. Now it's just what it is. 3 days later, Harlow held another briefing. Same room. Same voices. Same certainty. Alara stood at the back. Silent. Invisible. The valley operation was a complete success. Harlow was saying, his voice carrying that familiar confidence. No enemy contact. No resistance. I think we've established dominance in the sector. Lieutenant Corrin frowned. Sir, that doesn't make sense. Intelligence said there was a sniper team operating in that area. 23 men disappeared there. What changed? Harlow shrugged. Maybe they moved on. Maybe they were never there in the first place. Maybe intelligence was wrong. Or maybe something else happened, Major Chun said quietly. The room turned toward him. Chun was looking at Alara. Just for a moment. Just long enough for her to understand that he knew, that he understood, that the silence she'd purchased had been acknowledged by at least one person who mattered. Then he turned back to the map. Regardless, Chun continued, we can't assume the valley will remain safe. We need to maintain vigilance. Maintain Overwatch on all operations. Agreed, Harlow said. Corin, you'll take the next Overwatch position. Corin straightened. Yes, sir. No one mentioned Elara. No one suggested she return to the Overlook. She'd done her job too well. Had been so invisible that even her success was attributed to luck, to enemy movement, to anything except her skill. The briefing continued. Elara listened with half her attention. The other half was already calculating, already planning, already preparing for the next mission that would never be acknowledged. The next shot that would save lives no one would know were in danger. The next silence that would speak louder than any words. Because someone had to, and she'd accepted long ago that someone was her. Weeks passed. Harlow's patrols continued. The valley remained safe. No casualties. No contact. No one asked why. Elara returned to the northern overlook twice more. Both times, she found traces of enemy presence. Disturbed earth, old firing positions, evidence that the school she'd interrupted was trying to rebuild, trying to resume operations. Both times, she made sure they couldn't. Her kill count climbed. The numbers in Chen's classified files grew. But in the briefing room, she remained invisible. Specialist Park noticed the change first. You're different, she said one evening, finding Elara cleaning her rifle for the third time that day. Different how? Quieter, more distant, like you're not really here. I'm here. Are you? Park sat down across from her. Because sometimes I look at you and it's like you're a photograph of yourself. Present but not real. Elara set down the cleaning rod. You know what the worst part of this is? She asked. It's not the killing. I made peace with that a long time ago. It's not even the lack of recognition. I never did this for medals or commendations. Then what is it? It's knowing that the better I get at this, the more invisible I become. The more lives I save, the less real I am to the people I'm saving. Elara looked at her hands. Small, precise, stained with gun oil and sand. I'm disappearing, Park. Not all at once. Slowly. One mission at a time. One shot at a time. Until one day I'll just be a story people tell themselves when they need to explain good fortune they don't understand. Is that really so bad? Being a story. It is when you're still alive. Park was quiet for a long time. Then, for what it's worth, I see you. I know what you do. And it matters. Elara nodded. Didn't say that one person seeing her only made the invisibility to everyone else hurt worse. Didn't say that recognition from someone powerless was both better than nothing and somehow more painful than total anonymity. Didn't say anything at all. The orders came on a Tuesday. Major Chin delivered them personally. One more mission, he said. Then you're rotating home. Elara looked up from her kit. Sir, you've been in the country for 18 months. You've completed 47 Overwatch missions. You've eliminated 63 confirmed enemy combatants. You've saved more lives than I can count. Chen's voice was quiet, heavy. You've earned a rest. I don't need rest, sir. Yes, you do. I've been watching you, Moss. You're burning out, fading. If I leave you here much longer, I'm afraid you'll disappear completely. What's the mission? Chun spread a map on her bunk. Same valley. Intelligence suggests the enemy is making one final push before the season changes. They're planning something big. An assault on the base most likely. We need eyes on their staging area. We need to know what we're facing. Just observation? Chun met her eyes. We both know that's not what I'm asking you to do. Elara studied the map. The valley, the ridgelines, the approaches. The killing ground had become as familiar to her as her own heartbeat. When do I leave? Dawn. And Moss. Chen's voice softened. This is the last time. After this, you're done. You've given enough. Sir. Permission to speak freely? Granted. There's no such thing as giving enough in this work. There's only giving until you have nothing left. Or until someone makes you stop. Then I'm making you stop. After this mission, you're going home. That's an order. Elara nodded. finished packing her kit. At 0530 the next morning, she left the forward operating base for what she knew, somehow, would be the last time. The hike was familiar now. Every rock, every turn, every place where the terrain tried to kill you if you weren't paying attention. Alara moved through it like water through stone, slowly but with absolute certainty. By 1400 she was in position. Same depression, same rocks, same dying brush, different day, same war. She set up her hide with the precision of ritual.
Thermal tarp.
Camouflage netting, rifle on its rest. Scope pointed at the valley like the eye of an indifferent god. Then she waited. The enemy came at sunset. Not a patrol, not a scouting team, an army.
Baiklas.
Artillery, hundreds of soldiers, moving with the coordination of a professional military force preparing for a major offensive. Alara counted them. Logged, the first shot came at 20:47 hours. Target, a command vehicle's communications array. Distance, 3,200 meters. Purpose, disrupt coordination. The antenna shattered. Chaos rippled through the enemy formation. Soldiers looking around, trying to understand what happened, where it came from. Second shot, 2,103 hours. Target, fuel truck. Distance, 2,900 meters. Purpose, fear. The truck didn't explode like in movies, but fuel leaked, created panic, created the understanding that nowhere was safe. Third shot, 2,119 hours. Target, officer consulting with subordinates. Distance, 3,400 meters. Purpose, decapitation. The officer fell. The subordinates scattered. And so it continued. Shot after shot after shot. Not rapid fire. Precise. Calculated. Each one is designed to maximize disruption, confusion, and delay. Each one announced her presence more clearly. Each one narrowed the circle of places she could be. At 22:45, they found her general position. Mortars began falling on the ridgeline. Not accurate yet, they were still searching, still guessing. But getting closer. Alara moved to her secondary position. 800 meters west. Different angle. Different piece of the same ridgeline. Continued shooting. At 23:40, they found that position too. Artillery this time. Heavier. More accurate. The ridgeline erupted in fire and stone. Alara moved again. To her tertiary position. To her emergency position. To positions she improvised on the move, finding cover in terrain that shouldn't provide it, setting up shots that shouldn't be possible. She was bleeding now. Shrapnel from a near miss. Nothing critical. Just another variable to account for. At 0130, she ran out of predetermined positions. Started operating on instinct. On desperation. On the understanding that she was going to die here but could choose how much time she purchased with that death. At 0230, her radio crackled. Chen's voice, distant, distorted. Go 7, we're clear. All personnel evacuated. You can break contact. Get out of there. Alara looked at the valley. The army that had been delayed but not stopped. At the route they'd take to pursue Chen's forces. She made her decision. Negative Overwatch. They'll pursue. They'll catch you before you can establish defensive positions. Moss, that's an order. Disengage and... She turned off the radio. Cut the connection. Made herself a ghost even to the people who knew ghosts existed. Then she returned to her rifle. Dawn came slowly. Light bleeding across the horizon like a wound opening. Alara was out of position. Out of concealment. Almost out of ammunition. But the enemy was out of patience. They came for her in force. Not subtle anymore. Not tactical. Just overwhelming firepower directed at every place she might be. She moved between shots now. Fire. Relocate. Fire. Relocate. A dance with death where the music was artillery and the steps were measured in meters between cover points. She thought about Unipark, asking what she thought about during the long hours of waiting. Thought about Chun saying she'd given enough. Thought about Korin's face when he'd suggested she couldn't carry the weight. She'd carried it. all the way to the end. At 0647, she took her last shot. Distance: 4,100 meters. The longest shot of her life. Target: the second command vehicle, the one they'd brought up to replace the first. The bullet traveled for 4.2 seconds. In that time, Elara thought about invisibility, about silence, about the cost of being the ghost. The bullet struck true. And then the world ended in fire and sound and the inevitable mathematics of violence meeting its conclusion. Major Chun filed his report 3 days later. Sergeant Elara Moss, Kia in action. Circumstances: remained in Overwatch position to delay enemy advance, enabling evacuation of forward operating base. An estimated 400 enemy combatants were delayed by 6 hours and 43 minutes. 0 friendly casualties during evacuation. Recommended for Silver Star. Remains not recovered. The recommendation was approved. But there was no ceremony.
No parade.